An Olympic hopeful turned competitive ultra-cyclist, it's Ryan Collins. We'll be seeing a lot more of this 26-year-old in the years to come. In just a few short years of ultracycling, Ryan became the 2019 World Ultracycling Association 12-hour national champion, in addition to his other podium finishes at the Sebring 12-hour event. In 2020, Ryan went on to set 3 world records at the marks of 6 hours, 100 kilometers, and 200 kilometers, and even broke the Maryland cross-state record from north to south by over 2 hours. Outside of racing, Ryan has worked with at-risk youth, the Wounded Warrior Project, and Bike MS. As a newly minted MBA graduate and nutritional physiologist, Ryan is more than just an elite athlete. He's also a high-performing individual. I'm your host, Justin Tu. Let's roll. Hey Ultra family, Justin Tu here, your host of the Ultracycling Show. Thanks for tuning in for today's very special episode with young 26-year-old Ryan Collins out of Maryland in the United States. He is a 2-time 6-hour champion at the World Time Trial Championships in Borrego, California. He's also a world record holder, holding the records at 6 hours, 200 kilometers, and 100 kilometers. He also holds the cross-state record from Maryland from north to south. In 2017, Ryan was also an Olympic hopeful in track cycling. Looking forward to learning all about his journey. So thank you, Ryan, for joining me on the show today.
Hey, Justin, thank you so much for having me.
All right, so this is an exciting episode with another young, up-and-coming ultra-cyclist. I'm not sure if that's the right way to describe you, though, because you've already set multiple records, 3 world records, a cross-state record, and that was all just this year, right?
That's right, all in 1 year.
Super exciting. So you've been really busy even with the pandemic, but that seems to have been a trend with other guests on the show as well, that in a year where perhaps the ordinary Joe is slowed down in life, at least maybe athletically, it seems like a lot of ultra cyclists have been getting really busy, records, Everesting challenges, many other things. So I'm very excited to chat with you. I want to take a look at some of these nice photos that you sent through. Looks like you've had your fair share of adventures all around the world, I'm sure. You've got a really nice bicycle, or bicycles rather. Looks like there are several. Done some racing there. I see a team. And what is that? Is that a horse?
Yeah, yes. I called it, it's a pony cow. That's the story behind that.
All right. Well, super excited to have you on the show. Thanks for taking the time to speak with us. Georgie Stoichev, another guest on our show, nominated you. There is a lot to learn about you, and I'm really excited to learn about what your bid for the Olympics was and the whole story behind that and where you are today. But before we get started with that, Ryan, I'd like to dive into a quick sprint round of questions. It's just a series of questions to get to know you in a fun way, in a nutshell. Of course, the first question I'm wondering about is, well, how long have you even been riding bicycles?
So I've been riding bikes, road bikes, for 9 years. So it's been a significant part of my life.
Wow. Now, how long have you been an ultra cyclist?
Yeah, so I started ultracycling. My first event was in 2017, so 3 years.
All right. So just in 3 years, but you've been kept very, very busy. You already set numerous records. Some people may go their whole career and not set one record. So I'm very impressed and look forward to seeing where your ultracycling career takes you. So to support all of your bicycling adventures, I'm wondering how many bicycles do you own, Ryan?
I only have 2 bikes. I have a time trial bike and a road bike.
All right. And we saw some of those images. Very beautiful babies you got there.
Yeah.
What's your favorite of them?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I've got both of them in the room, and they hear, so can't play favorites. But I'd have to say it's the time trial bike.
All right. Yeah. Good choice. Good choice. Don't worry. I'm sure your other bike understands. Okay. Now, do you ride the time trial bike the most?
No, actually, I don't. It's hard to find time, or not time rather, but places to ride the time trial bike.
Hmm.
Cars locally do not fully expect someone to be riding on a bike as fast as I can with the time trial bike.
Hmm.
And especially in the narrow position, it's just not quite as conducive for the workouts that I have. So most of the time, it's actually on my road bike. Um, the weekends, I'm able to travel and get into a more safe location. And so that's when I'll ride the time trial bike. Otherwise, in the winter, when I'm on the trainer, it's almost exclusively the time trial bike.
Oh, nice. Well, it's a beautiful bike to be riding indoors. Must keep you quite motivated, and I'm sure you're going very fast inside.
Yeah.
Okay, Ryan, what bicycle computer do you use? Do you use a Garmin or a Wahoo?
Use the Garmin.
Garmin. All right, nice. Okay, when it comes to your bicycle, the equipment, the gear, what size tire do you prefer using? And is there a preferred tire pressure that you like having them, depending on, race you might be doing, the bike that you're using?
Yeah, that's interesting. So depending upon the wheels, I traditionally like the 25 mil width.
Hmm.
And then for the tire pressure, probably it's about 80 psi in the front and about 85 in the rear. I like that as far as the feel that I get.
All right. How about gearing?
Yeah, the gearing is a tough one too. On the time trial bike, standard 55, well, standard is relative, 55 tooth chainring in the front. And then depending on the course in the back, um, probably an 1130 is nice. A lot of options.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Okay, so do you train by distance or time?
Time.
Right, makes sense. So I guess you probably have a coach?
I do. I work very closely with Andy Jackson from Peak Sports Consultancy.
Ah, yes, a very familiar name in ultracycling. Okay, so you obviously train with power and
Yes.
heart rate then.
Mhm.
Do you do a regular functional threshold FTP test?
No, I don't. Um,
Ah, interesting.
you'll have to speak with Andy to get his feedback.
Hmm.
Uh, so I won't dive in and discuss all those secrets, but no, I don't do a frequent FTP test. In fact, the last one I did was before Bike Sebring in February.
Fascinating. That's amazing. Yeah, it would be good to have him on the show soon. I know we've had nominations for him, so I guess we'll have to pick his brain then. Stay tuned, everyone, for that episode. Okay, Ryan, most important question. What's your favorite ride snack? What do you like eating on the bike?
Ooh, favorite thing to eat on the bike. Um, Gotta say rice. Rice
Oh,
cakes.
yeah.
So different types. I love cooking. I love experimenting. And one of my sponsors, Scratch Labs, they have a book, the Feed Zone Cookbook.
Oh,
Uh,
yes.
so many different options to experiment with and try different varieties of rice cakes. There's just so much you can do. Satisfies every craving you can imagine. So that's all time go to.
Yeah, that's awesome. In fact, I have that recipe book myself. And Alan Lim, founder of Scratch Labs, he actually also graduated from my alma mater, UC Davis. My
Wow.
brother did also. In fact, they were in the same program, not at the same time, but same program. They no longer have that program there at Davis. And so we've been quite accustomed to all those recipes as well. Love Scratch. And I'd imagine then your favorite ride hydration, Scratch Labs?
Yeah, so the short answer, yes, but it's all about functional nutrition. So depending upon
Hmm.
the workout at hand, it's gonna vary. But I'd say 90% of the time, it's Scratch Labs.
Yeah, yeah. Haven't had the chance to try many of the different kinds of rice cakes myself. What is your favorite ingredients to put in it?
So the one I actually just created earlier this summer, it's it's rice and sugar, like that. That's it, and a
Hmm.
little bit of vanilla. But the way you make it comes out almost like a marshmallow. So I think it tastes fantastic.
Delicious.
It's light in flavor, but it's just got a little bit of sweetness. So I think it's awesome. It tastes great. It's easy to digest, and it's portable. It's quick and easy. So it works for me. Everyone's different. Everyone's stomach is different, but that's my go-to.
Yeah, totally. Now, how big are they typically? Maybe you could show me with your hands. And how many calories about in one of those ones?
Yeah, that's a good question. So How would I show this? Um, it's not not too big.
Huh.
Like a little bit slightly bigger than a quarter.
Wow.
It's not too big, but I'm able to get about 90 calories uh, per cake. Um, so it's a quick and easy, packs a punch, and it's great.
That's awesome. Now, how many do you carry with you typically on a ride? Like if you're going for an hour or two?
Yeah, so I always carry more than I need. You never know who you're going to bump into, and if you want to share snacks, or if your ride turns into an adventure. So it's always better to be prepared. So I'll usually carry 4 to 5, just in case.
Hmm. Interesting. And then I guess other nutrition as well. Okay, on the subject of eating, what's one of your favorite post-ride meals? You know, something after a nice, long, hard, record-setting 6-hour TT or just a training ride.
Yeah. So I'm gonna cheat here. My favorite thing to eat after a ride is a cannoli, an Italian treat, a pastry. I wouldn't consider that a meal unless you have multiple of them, which is always a dream. But if you're going specifically for a meal, I'm just a big fan of a mixed salad. Lots of different ingredients you can just toss in.
Oh,
Um, Tasty.
you're in good company. Christoph Strasser loves his salads also.
Yeah.
And, you know, now that you mentioned the cannoli, here's your website. And I do remember actually looking at your website because somewhere there you were talking about cannolis.
Yeah, so actually, I was experimenting with rice cakes. I wanted to find a way to make a cannoli flavored rice cake, and I came close, but there's no way of really replicating the best.
Mm. And I see here is a post about rice cakes. This, I don't think this is the cannoli one, but we can get some idea of what it looks like.
Yeah, so actually, that's the post I detailed the ultimate rice cake, which is that
Mm.
the marshmallow rice cake.
Ah, so that's how it comes out when you mix it all together with the sugar.
No, so that's a type of rice that I use. So it's
Oh,
very
interesting.
smaller and fine, and then I'm able to grind it up and whisk it in such a way. There's some of the techniques are listed in the post,
Mm.
and it comes out fluffy.
Wow. Yeah, no, the fluffiness looks delicious. Very cool. Yeah, very well done. Nice post for folks to check out on your website. We'll include links for folks to check it out. So I guess in addition to being an ultra cyclist, you are also a chef.
Yeah, I'm a foodie.
Yeah, that's really cool. Ryan, do you prefer climbs, descents, rollers, or flats?
I love to climb. That would be number one, top priority. The least favorite among those would be descending. You know, they say what must go up must go down.
Mm.
But here in Annapolis, there's really nowhere to go down. You know, the elevation is so minimal that I find that when I do compete elsewhere, where you have these long descents, I need more practice, and I think that's why I don't enjoy them as much.
Mm.
But I gotta say, I love going up.
Yeah, interesting. How much do you weigh and how tall are you?
I'm about 6 foot in height, 6.5 on a good day, and race weight. That's a good question. I'd probably say I average about 60 kilos. So during the yeah, that's about right. 60 kilos.
Oh, okay. About 132, 133 pounds. Very good weight.
Yes.
I'm actually usually around 138, so we're pretty close. You're a little
Yeah.
taller than I am, though, and probably much stronger. So, Ryan, do you know what your max speed down a hill has been?
Yes. So that you always take that with a grain of salt.
Mm.
I lived in San Sebastian, Spain for a period of time, and so that recorded one of the highest speeds that I had going downhill. It was 59.4 miles per hour.
Wow.
So you know, take it with a grain of salt. But there were some awesome hills there,
Mm.
mountains rather.
Yeah, very cool. It was fun to go downhill. Now, when do you enjoy riding the most? Fall, winter, spring, or summertime?
I love the summer. I love the heat. I just, there's something about the heat. I think I perform better. I do not handle the cold well at all.
Hmm. Very interesting. How about desert type heat, like 110 degrees?
Yeah, as long as the humidity level, if you want to combine the two together, I'd rather stay inside. But just dry heat at 110, that's fine.
Hmm. Yeah, good to know. Time of day you prefer riding?
Morning. There's something special about catching the sunrise. If it's that early, like I love in the summer, you wake up super early, quick breakfast and jump on the bike, and you can just catch the sunrise in Annapolis right on the water. Just energizes you, and you feel great for the rest of the day. And it's a good way to start your morning or start the day at all.
Yeah, it must be beautiful out there on the East Coast. Of course, I'm sitting here in the West Coast. Not too bad out here in California either. Okay, Ryan, you've been an ultra cyclist for about 3 years, but a cyclist for more than that. What do you think now, after doing all of your time trials, your records? Does ultra cycling require more physical or mental training?
Mental. You can have the strongest legs in the world, but when the going gets tough, if you can't handle it mentally, then you're done. You just don't have the will to push on.
Hmm. Yes, very well said. Okay, favorite event that you've done, ultra event.
Favorite event. Um, I'm going to go with the Luchon Bayonne event in France.
Wow, sounds fancy. Was that one of the photos that you sent through?
Yeah, these are some of the photos. It was the 1910 Tour de France, one of the
Okay.
stages, the original Tour de France.
This one, for example?
That's it. Yeah, that was on the Col du Tourmalet.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's a 320 kilometer, so about 200-mile race with 6,000 meters. So that's just under 20,000 feet of elevation.
Incredible. Yeah, it looks really beautiful there. And in fact, we've had an episode before about an event in that area, the Ultra Bike Pursuit. There's several options. One of them was the Tourmalet Pursuit, but you could also do essentially all of the Pyrenees Mountains. So it's something you might be interested in now that you're familiar with the beautiful scenery there. And in fact, we have another episode with the organizer of that event, Jean-Philippe Soulet. He's also a grand adventurer, so you'll definitely love hearing from him.
Yeah, something to look forward to.
Ryan, when you think of ultra cycling, who pops into your mind?
Christoph Strasser, number one.
Yes, very true, very true. Well, thanks, Ryan, for going through those sprint round questions. Nice to get to know you now, kind of calibrated into who you are. But I'd love to dive into your story, see where you started, where you're coming from, and where you're headed. Now, in the intro, we did mention that you were an Olympic hopeful in 2017. Tell us all about that. What had happened? Where you are today?
Yeah, so in 2017, I received an invitation to go debut or try out for the Olympic team for track cycling. So all the preparation was in place. That's a whole story in of itself. And then the week before I was supposed to fly out to the Olympic Training Center, was coming back from a training ride and was involved in an accident. I was hit by a car. So that completely ended any chance. The paramedics thought I was delusional, and I said I'm fine. I'm fine. I have to get better. I have to stand up. I'm going to the Olympics. And they're like, oh, yeah, of course this kid is right. So anyways, I require reconstructive surgery in my upper body. Typically, if you break a bone, you get a cast, or you can get like a plate put in, or but that's assuming that the bone is in place. In my case, the bones were gone. They were just well, let's just say half the surgery was getting the shards of the bone out, because there's nothing that could put the bone back together. You didn't have like a solid structure. So that took quite a while to come back from, and there was always a question from the surgeons, doctors, the specialists: can you ride a bike again? Can you get into a position to ride? Can your body handle the stress associated with cycling or endurance sports? More importantly, what happens if you crash again? So
amazing.
take it. we
Yeah.
are here. We are.
Yes. But not only are you here, but you're here 3 world records later, a cross-state record later, and still going very strong. So
Yes.
clearly, you've made enough of a recovery to be able to pursue even greater feats now. And there's no stopping you, 26 years of age. But I don't want to kind of brush over that story like, it was kind of nothing. I'm sure in your life it was very significant, very impactful, and very difficult. Tell me about how difficult that was and how long it took you to kind of get over that and start moving forward. What did that look like for you?
Yeah. So where do I begin? It was just at that point, the only thing that I really knew in my life was cycling. Like that's what I was looking forward to. There was so much excitement and opportunity around the world of cycling. Weekends were going to bike races, every day training, and all of a sudden to come to a complete halt, and not by choice, was tough. Especially the first few days after surgery was just, there's so much darkness. You just didn't know what the future would hold. Would you ever see a bike again? The passion that you love, my friends, all my cycling community events and people that I've interacted with, would I see them again in the same way? Would I be able to ride with friends, partake in the same events? It was just hard. And again, it's one of those things, like these are the cards you're dealt. Now what? You can only move forward. You can't change anything behind you. So just take each day by day and make the absolute most of it. And everyone kept telling me as I went through the surgeries, the rehab, the physical therapy, tackle that like it's your training. You're doing, instead of doing threshold intervals, you're doing stretching intervals, and you'll be back. Just you have to want it. You have to, do it. It's all up to you. No one can tell you that you can't. It's up to you to prove them wrong and show them that you can. And it was just, again, like I said, just focus every day, training, if you will, just doing the routine, going through the motions. Can I get strength back? And every day was just a little bit further. And that 1% adds up over time. And those are the gains and the strides you make.
Definitely sounds like the mind of an ultracyclist, one pedal stroke at a time. Of course, the Race
Exactly.
Across America is a very popular event, always discussed on the show. And really, the only way to accomplish something like that is to have that mindset of just at 1% at a time, just one day at a time. Now, at that time when you had the accident, the doctors were telling you, there's little hope. Just say on a scale of 1 to 10, at that point, it was a 10. So difficult for you to just grapple in your mind, to fathom, to just make sense of what is your future going to be? What is your life going to be? Where are you today on that scale of 1 to 10?
I'm optimistic. I think there are some setbacks that I have, that I will always have. But I'd probably put it about a 5. There's a lot of opportunity that lies ahead. And I think that there's great opportunity.
So talking about opportunity then, what is on your bucket list?
Yeah, that's a good question. At this point in time, I don't have a confirmed bucket list. I have some ideas in the back of my mind. Like, I'd love to race across Italy. I'd love to race across France. Across the United States would be great. But I think there's so many different places in the world that I want to experience. I want to go see by bike, and that's really how I experience the world. Seeing things on a bike. I've realized that in the past few years that I've had, just the places that I've gone, the things that I've done, the things I've seen, the people that I've met have all really come from the biking community. But there's such a greater world out there that's just ripe for visiting and experiencing. So that's what I'm most looking forward to, is just experiencing new places and doing different things. So as far as a bucket list event, traveling aside, I'd stick race across Italy and race across France.
Sounds like some good fun events and a lot of exploration. I look forward to following your journey and seeing what you're able to accomplish. Now, of course, you were trained for many years as a very competitive cyclist. For ultra cycling, would you still consider yourself your own ambitions, your motivations to become a very highly competitive ultra cyclist? Or are you really in it more to continue your love of cycling, to challenge yourself, to reach for new heights, but not necessarily looking to podium at every event you do or try to, show up at all of the top ultra cycling events in the world to try to make a name for yourself in that way? Well, where would you put yourself? Are you still competitive?
Yeah, I think that's a tough question. The way I see it is I want to be the best that I can possibly be. And so that means going to any race out there and performing. And I want to be the best. If I go to a race, I'm going to give nothing less than 110% of my effort. And, if I can be the best of the day, that's great. But every day is just becoming better version of myself. So yes, I am competitive. I want to see myself succeed. I want to keep improving myself, be a better version of
Awesome.
Ryan every day.
I love that. And I could tell just from your smile and the way you talk, you are a very positive person. And I'm sure you learned a lot through that accident that is, just the seeds of greatness. And we'll see what comes out of that. Of course, a lot already. Tell me about this awesome photo. It looks like some cutthroat competition. Is that you here in the front?
Yeah, so that was in 2016. It's a criterium race, a local in Virginia. So
Hmm.
yeah, that was you're getting ready for the last few laps, and it was my job to pick up the pace, and that's where that shot was taken from.
Yeah, very cool photograph, I must say. Looking very serious, very focused. A lot of other cool photos. This one here, tell me about where this is.
Yeah, so that's the iconic sculpture garden from Borrego Springs. That was last
Ah,
2019.
yes.
That was the 6-hour World Time Trial Championship.
Yeah, I didn't even see the dragon sculpture in the background there. I was so captivated by the mountains and your extremely cool bike kit and just everything about you there. I mean, that is epic right there.
Yeah, isn't it an awesome photo?
Yes, most definitely. But of course, as you mentioned, one of the great things about the Borrego Springs area is the sculptures, and it's always a lot of fun taking photos with them. Some really big ones out there
Yeah,
for those who aren't familiar. So tell me more about your beginnings. Was there somebody in your family that was a cyclist, an athlete? Kind of how did you get motivated to get into cycling?
yeah. So I started cycling as just a means to cross train. I was initially a tennis player, and
Hmm.
I just figured, having some other means of training. I didn't really enjoy running, and at the time, my father started coaching the Naval Academy cycling team, and
Hmm.
he also threw his hat in the ring for the Race Across America. So I was frequented by many of these amazing athletes, from teammates to the Navy cycling team, seeing them race, seeing other competitors race, and I was inspired to get a bike. And I just started training. I started riding more frequently, and entered my first race in 2009. And it was miserable, but at the same time, it was something that I just loved. There was something about it. It was that desire for more. Like I wanted to go faster. I wanted to perform better. I saw people who were far stronger than I was, and it just gave me aspiration to be like them. And so I stuck to it. I actually dropped tennis in order to pursue cycling more, and I got a winter trainer that winter. I started spending more time in the garage than I ever spent, the past few years that we lived in the house. And came into 2010 ready to ride. I joined a team, and again, there was more of that mentorship of just the senior riders just showing me the ropes, how to ride a bike, how to race, how to train, how to eat, how to fuel, how to recover, how to rest. And it was just awe-inspiring to see these other people perform, and it was just motivating to continue to, going back to what I said, being the best version of yourself and improving.
That's very well said. Very cool story. Yeah. So you've been at it for quite some time and you were a tennis player. You said one of the people that you think of always is Christoph Strasser. And he mentioned in his second episode recently with us that one of the things he enjoys doing while he's on the trainer is watching other sports, including tennis. So I asked him if after all is said and done, maybe he's won 10 race across Americas and who knows what else, if he will decide to become a tennis player. He thinks not. But I guess you've lived that life. You're a tennis player turned ultra-cyclist. Very cool.
There you go.
Ryan, do you have any siblings?
I do not. It's just me and the cat right now.
Oh, okay, cool. And don't you have a dog as well?
I used to have a dog. That was my Boomer. But he is forever immortalized in the hair that we have around the house.
Very cool. Yeah, for folks who want to follow your journeys, Facebook is a great place to check you out. Here's your dog.
Yep, that's Boomer. My dad was able to get him dressed up in the Maryland cycling kit. And
so cool.
That is the profile picture.
I love that. That's so cool. And then, of course, you do have an Instagram, RyanCollins._. A lot of cool photographs there. A lot of nice adventures. Great photos of your bike. Now, how long have you had this time trial bike?
Yeah, the BMC, 2 years going on 3. 2018 was when I first got the BMC.
Very cool. Here's a photo at the finish at the World Time Trial Championships.
That was a tough day. That was that was a hard one.
Yeah, I can imagine. So, Ryan, you've done a lot of events already. Tell me about your feeling or your mindset of ultracycling now, 3 years after starting. You've done a number of very long distance and timed events. What does ultracycling feel like compared to the road racing, the track racing, the crit racing that you were doing before?
Yeah, so that's interesting. My first, or one of my first ultra races was Bike Sebring. And I fully expected, it was a 12-hour time trial, that we would start at a leisurely pace. I didn't fully expect it to take off from the gun like a crit. Just everyone was gunning for that position around the racetrack. So that took me by surprise. So from that perspective, I would say they're almost the same from the start. It's gunning for position, fast start, and the mental perspective, when the going gets tough, you have to be ready and you have to be going, you have to go. So I'd say they're pretty similar. It's just crit happens to last about an hour and ultra events are 12 times that, or maybe a little bit more. Fortunately though, you don't have those, many of those surges in the races, those lap preems. That would definitely throw a curve in many of the ultra races.
Yeah, so I think that's one of the interesting things about you and your background. Of course, there are other ultra cyclists like Slovenian ultra racer Marko Ballo, one of the world's greats currently, the late Jure Robic. They both had pro cycling backgrounds. And there are others out there who do things like Race Across America, Race Around France even, and many others. So you are one of those people who has had formal training, a lot of it, coaching, a lot of that very high intensity racing. Whereas a lot of ultra cyclists, all they've done is endurance riding. They know how to ride long, but not necessarily hard. So how do you feel compared to the other competition out there? Do you feel like you have that edge? Because not only can you race hard, can you, spin up the power when you need it, but also in the training?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a competitive advantage. Like you said, you can have a lot of watts, a lot of power, but you have to know how to use that power. So that is key in all the races. It's a combination too, right? You've got, the aerodynamics that go into how you're going to face the wind, something that no one can hide from, how you fuel, how you know your body, what what food to take when, and how much. Too much is never, well, it's not a good place to be. And not enough is certainly the worst place to be. So yeah, I think that's definitely a competitive advantage to have that higher intensity in my legs, just to know how my body reacts from that perspective. It's a full perspective. It's a whole holistic athlete, right? Just to develop in the best way that you possibly can be.
Yeah, most definitely. I like that well-rounded approach. It is important. Again, for many ultra distance cyclists or just endurance cyclists tend to focus on the lower zones and really just really long, kind of slow, but enjoyable rides. And, it's something for everyone. Now, really curious, in any of your ultra events that you've done, even perhaps the World Time Trial Championships, have you ever been on the attack?
Yes. So most notably, or the thing that comes to mind, the 12-hour national championship in 2019. We had so a little bit of background about the course. I believe it's like a 33-mile course, long course. You do that 3 times for about 109, 110-ish miles. And then you go into the short loops. So we had just finished the long loop, the last long loop. And there was about 3 or 4 of us in the top group, and somebody attacked. I bridged up to them and then attacked them, and then from then on it was just leading the race for the remaining 5 or so hours.
Wow, that sounds like some exciting ultra racing. Not something you see every day out in an ultra event. Now, did you say that was a 12-hour?
Yeah, that was the 12-hour national championship in Frederick, Maryland.
And how did you end up doing that? You won that one, right?
I did, yes. I got the nice Stars and Stripes jersey hanging over there.
Yeah, very cool. And what was the distance covered?
That's a good question. I actually don't remember. I don't remember off the top of my head. I think it was about 270 miles. Wow. I can also tout that they changed the course that year, so I have the course record. So that's also exciting.
Oh, wow. Do you remember what the average speed was on that record?
Again, I do not.
Yeah, that's okay.
Actually, so as we mentioned earlier, I usually train for time. I don't look at speed or distance. So when I'm racing power, I just look at power for pacing, and I've got the timer going, and that's all I need to know. I just need to know how much is left in both the time and the legs in the tank.
Yeah, that's so cool. Well, it is exciting to have somebody like you out there in the ultra races to keep things fun and fresh and fast. In your ideal world or ideal race, dream race, perhaps, whether it's the World Time Trial Championships or just a course of your choosing, who would you want to go head to head with? Maybe, 2 or 3 of your favorite ultra cyclists.
Wow, that's a tough question. I was spoiled last year with the change in the Bike Sebring event, where I actually got to race against Marco Ballo. And I have to say that was really cool. And I was very fortunate because I think it was like a last minute decision that he decided to change from the 24 to the 12. So I only found out an hour before I went to bed, before the race. And I didn't have a lot of time to really worry about it. It was just, all right, well, I have to go to bed. I'll see him on the start line tomorrow. But yeah, I want a rematch. See if it not go according to plan by anyone's standards. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing him on the line again someday.
Oh boy, yeah, 12 hours. That's a short distance, and I know Mark is very strong as well, so I'm sure there's a very heated competition. Now, what happened for you?
Yeah, so it's just a lot of speculation. No one knows why. Something happened in my leg. Again, we don't really know what happened, but I just had such immense pain after I think it was about 7 or 8 hours of racing. It became so bad that I couldn't pedal. I had to unclip my left leg, and I did the last lap that I could, just pedaling with one leg. Wow. And my speed just went from like 25 to 0 and it was terrible. Walking hurt. It's one of those things. If I had continued to press on, it would not have been worth it. It would have been even more time off the bike later down the road. And at that point, Marco and I were riding side by side. I had caught up to him, so I feel like I had more to give. Certainly did, but I ended up dropping out. So
very unfortunate, but I'm sure we'll see you back there again, and it'll be fun to see that head-to-head competition. Yes. Okay, who else would you want to race against? Say Marco is in the race. Who else would you want there?
Ooh, okay. So I'd definitely throw in Andy Jackson's hat into the ring. And then, why not go all in with Christoph Strasser as well?
All right. Yeah, that sounds like a fun one. Now, would you want to race them on a flat course like Sebring or the World Time Trial Championships, or would you want to race them on a mountainous kind of course, maybe race around France or something like that?
Yeah. I think I'd probably go with the mountainous course. I think that'd probably play more towards my favor. But who knows, right? We'll keep it interesting.
Okay, what distance would you want to race at? Would it be like at a 12-hour kind of duration or a certain distance?
I definitely keep the time around 12, under 12. I think that's more of my sweet spot. I think between like the 6 and the 12 is definitely where I see myself performing. I just haven't invested much time going beyond 13, 14, 15 hours. And if I'm trying to add all to my competitive advantage here, I think the more time you add on, the greater you see with Christoph Strasser, Marco Ballo.
Right. Okay, so say we keep it at a 10 or 12-hour distance, mountainous route. What would your race strategy be from the beginning?
My race strategy, I would say sit in. These are amazing athletes. And I've never ridden, well, except for Marco, I've never been with any of them. So I'd wait, I'd wait to see, I'd ride within myself. And then if the opportunity availed itself and somebody should attack, I would follow wheels and just continue to go and just wait.
Interesting. Yeah, sounds like some Tour de France type of stuff here, some UCI racing. Now, would you work together if you were in a breakaway?
Yes. I would definitely work in a breakaway.
Now, is there a certain distance where you would not want to breakaway at that point? It's too early on in the race, or is anything fair game?
I think anything is fair game. Without really, again, I don't know these other individuals. I don't know if they're going to crack. I don't know if even the people around me, if we're going to work together or not. So if someone should attack, I will go and follow.
Okay, say you were going up a big climb. What's a big climb that you're familiar with?
Well, big is relative. Is it long? Is it
long? Long. What's some steepness? Give me some idea of one of your favorites, anywhere in the world.
We'll just say the Col du Tourmalet.
Okay, perfect. So say the Tourmalet. If you saw that, okay, maybe Marco was there, maybe two other, say top 20 ultracyclists in the world kind of people. A small pack that you guys had there, a little breakaway. You started that climb. How long is the climb?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay, long enough. Say you're about a quarter way up, you start seeing some weakness in perhaps all of them. Would you actually make an attack on that climb? And say perhaps you're only six hours into this 12-hour event.
And the climb is the rest of the 6 hours?
No, it is just however long it is. I don't know, how long is it? An hour or two?
Okay, so that's an interesting way to put it. Would I attack? No, I would not. I would probably put in a small effort just to drive the pace. If I see that people are hurting. But there's still a long way to go. And knowing that there's also a big descent on the other side, just enough to put a little bit of sting in the legs if I'm feeling fresh and fine. Again, using that power to weight to my advantage, but nothing too substantial, knowing that, again, there's several of them and there's only one of me. And if they're going to work together, likely they're gonna catch me on the descent and then also on the roads in the remaining time.
Yes. Yeah, I'm obviously you could tell that I'm very eager to see this race happen.
Yeah.
And all these others. Okay, so one last question, and then we'll move on away from these hypotheticals. But just say, okay, the same race, you're getting towards the end then. When would you make your final break, or would you wait for a group sprint at the very end?
Yeah, no, I would not wait for a group sprint. That's a given. I would, if I had known the course profile, again, I would play it to my strength, which would probably be that power to weight. So I'd look for another climb towards the end, and looking at the, weighing the benefits, the pros and the cons. Can I accelerate up that climb at a fast enough speed that I can get that gap for the descent? How is the descent? Is it very technical? Is it straight shot? And then what's the distance from the bottom of the mountain, the hill, to the finish line? So I'd look at moving away and separating myself either into a more select group or to be more solo towards the end. When it comes to, I guess you could say I'm more like a diesel engine. I've got more power and at a sustained rate than at a peak performance rate. So I'm not putting out 2,000 watts, not from this body. So
now, what is your max power output?
Yeah, I'm not even going to tell you.
Oh, okay, that's a secret. That's a secret one. Okay, that's all fair. That's all fair. Now, tell me about this team here.
Yeah, so that's the team that I'm racing for, Bike Doctor Racing. What can I say? It's a great group of guys, and the philosophy that I have for just like education, you want to surround yourself with people who are going to better you, like smarter than you, just to like a different group of guys. They're awesome. Just the level of support that they have for the sport in general. I'm the only ultra cyclist on the team. So I'll participate in time trials and road races, but the team is more focused on the Mid-Atlantic region for road bike, time trial, criterium racing. So when you talk about building that holistic athlete, that whole rounded, there's no better place to be. They pushed me on the training rides from those town line sprints, crit practice. It's a great group of guys that support me and push me and on and off the bike.
Yeah, very cool. Always nice to ride together with other people for that motivation. So it does sound like you still are doing some shorter distance races, road racing,
Yes.
crits and all that.
Yes.
I'm sure that keeps you very strong then and very competitive.
Yes. In the summertime when racing is occurring, you usually have multiple opportunities. So there's usually like a time trial. The criteriums I try to stay away from. That's not where I see myself performing, but also from a safety perspective, but also road races. So there's a lot of opportunity to mix things up. And then of course you got the ultra races. So it's a great way to just balance training, try different things, and just round yourself out, do different things that you never know can come back and help you, like in the start of an ultracycling race when you have those surging pack movements, or you have to navigate your way through bike carnage, you've got that experience.
Very interesting. Yeah, so it does sound like you're getting definitely that holistic practice in for yourself. I know Christoph, he tends to train, he said about 95% solo, just because of logistic reasons, he training a lot during the week, not having friends, perhaps they can bike at the same time as he can. So you are kind of having a different kind of training approach. You do have a team, you are riding with other folks, but also you are doing the shorter, higher intensity workouts, which I think, again, for the average ultra cyclist is very unusual and exceptional. Turning our attention back to some of your records now. So you've set a number of them, and that was all just this year, 2020, during the pandemic. So tell us about the motivation behind the records that you set, where you did them.
Yeah, so when the pandemic hit, all races were canceled. And at that time, I was gunning to have a repeat for the national championship, the national 12, which was like the end of May timeframe. But when that was canceled, I thought to myself, what am I training for? What is going to get me out of the bed to ride my bike today for some purpose? I love riding my bike, but if I don't have a training plan in place or a goal for the day, I really don't think I can ride my bike for more than like an hour and a half before I just say I'm done. I don't see the point. It's the same roads. I'm just, I needed something to fuel me. So with that in mind, I was speaking with Andy Jackson from Peaks Sports Consultancy, and he said, well, why don't you go for a state record? And I figured we've got this opportunity now. We've got no racing in place. We've got fitness, and with minimal participation from anyone aside from the official. So why not go for it? We'll put race practice race into practice. Test the mental strength, the legs, the nutrition, the gear, the equipment. We'll test everything. And what's the worst thing that can happen? You don't break the record, then you try again later. But if nothing else, it gives you an opportunity to try new roads and enter a race in a non-race environment. So that was an exciting opportunity. And then later, we found out that the national championship would be rescheduled for, I think it was August, and it would be in North Carolina. So we training back up and planned that we were going to go back into 12-hour training mode. So I spent a religious amount of time training around this one course. It's a time trial course that we use in the Mid-Atlantic region, Church Creek. It's just a flat course. It's about 25 miles in length, and it's a circle. And you can essentially go, there's no traffic lights. There's only one stop sign. So for the most part, you can just keep going around it. And it's near a wildlife preserve. So there's minimal traffic as well, and just quiet roads. So I spent a lot of time out there training. Long story short, Nationals was canceled. So I figured with this fitness, what should I do? And again, we spoke. Andy said, why don't you just try and knock out the 100-kilometer, the 200-kilometer, and the 6-hour world records all at once? Figured, okay, why not? Let's go for it. We did just that.
Amazing. Now, do you remember what your times, distances were for each of those?
I do not know.
Okay, not a problem.
Yeah, I do not remember off the top of my head.
So the cross-state record you did, Maryland, north to south. Tell me about how that went for you. I mean, how were the conditions? How were you feeling?
That was an interesting day. So we had anticipated, by luck, there was this massive storm that was going to come through Maryland, and we were looking at insane winds. And it was going to be a huge tailwind, essentially, the whole way. Massive tailwind. And we figured it's the type of thing where I'm just going to jump on the bike and I won't have to pedal. With 25-mile-an-hour winds, I'm just going to fly across the state. And as the story developed, as the storm progressed closer, we found that it was going to storm. It was heavy rain with a tailwind. And then we got a few days closer and everything changed. And next thing you know, it was going to be like a deluge and a headwind. Oh. So riding in the rain is not pleasurable. It's not fun. Well, at least for me, it's not. And especially riding in the rain into a ferocious headwind, that's like a double no-no. So we quickly made the decision that we were going to go, I think it was 24 hours in advance. Which is acceptable under the ultracycling guidelines, the rules. So we had a slight headwind or crosswind the whole way. So I'll definitely take that over a deluge and massive headwind. But otherwise, it was also very humid. It was like everything that I was sweating was just not evaporating. I was drenched. And yeah, the chafing from everywhere was. I'll save you that.
Yeah, a lot that happens on an ultracycling event, and a lot of it unexpected, and you have to shift gears quickly. But well done on that. Tell me about who was supporting you in that event, and perhaps also just in general in your life, before the accident and even after today. Who's the support in your life?
Yeah, so I'm very fortunate that I have a great community of just family and friends that are very supportive. Um, there's too many people to mention, but it's just the highlight. Mom and dad. You can't. How can I not say mom and dad? My father has been with me to almost every cycling event that I've ever participated in, from racing locally to those ultra endurance races. Just he's always there on the sidelines. We've got everything down to a science. My mom has learned the ropes, and so feeding. They know me almost as well as I know myself. You know, I'll come through the feed zone and I'll be thinking in my head, I need to shout to them, I need like this gel and or this bar or this drink mix or whatever it may be. But if they've already got it down and they know, like I'm going to need a bottle now, I'm going to need a bar now. They've got it down pat. So they've been a huge support just from allowing me to train and to race, and it just, thank you doesn't do it justice. There's just so much that they do to help me be the better version of myself.
Yeah, that's so cool. Well, I suppose to thank you in addition to all the records that you hold.
Yeah. It's really,
Yeah,
it's an effort, right? You know, there's only
of
one
course.
person riding the bike, but there's a village behind that rider.
Mm.
So there's so many people that just help, and their support, it means so much.
Yeah, it's so true. And I can definitely relate. Both of my parents had been so supportive of me through all my years of ultra cycling and couldn't do it without them. And in fact, we all know that as ultra cyclists, especially for events that do require a crew, that the crew may not be able to win the race for you, but they can definitely lose it for you. It
Absolutely.
can also keep you positive minded, as kind of you were talking about earlier, keep you determined, but also they know you. And even when you're tired, you can't think straight because you've been putting that such a big effort for such a long time, that they could be there to step in, give you what you need at the right time.
Yes.
So, talking about nutrition and all of that, tell me about how that looks like for you, perhaps in a race like a 6 or 12 hour event. Are you really disciplined with that? And at certain time intervals, you always make sure you're taking so many sips or eating so much rice cakes, or, what does that look like for you?
So we experimented leading up to what we were hoping for is the 12-hour national championships. We had experimented with different drink mix. So Scratch Labs, as you know, they have the exercise hydration mix, and they were testing last year their super fuel. So I was very happy and fortunate to be a participant in the testing for the super fuel. And I found a way to actually mix it into my diet. So I'm on for 6 hours an exclusively liquid diet. And we've tested up to about 8 hours, which has been sufficient. More testing is needed to see if I could do that for an entire 12-hour. But we've got a concentration where I'll take the food scale out and I'll weigh the amount of super fuel and the amount of regular scratch mix. And it took months to really test this out, but finding my sweat rate and how much of each mix was sufficient to compensate for the sweat loss at a given temperature, but also to provide me with enough carbohydrates or energy calories that doesn't cause gastrointestinal distress or GI distress.
Right.
So
Pretty cool.
that's like the liquid diet. Yeah.
So you've
Other,
taken a pretty scientific approach to that, very measured approach. Now, tell me about the flavor and also just being able to stomach all of that for 6, 8 hours. Has that been working very well for you now that you have that mix down?
yeah, so it worked out pretty well. When we did the 6-hour world record, I was drinking about it was 500 milliliters of water every 40 minutes, and so each bottle had about I think it was like 140 or 150 calories every 40 minutes, and I had no issues with stomach. It was all lemon lime flavor, so you've got the super fuel being lemon lime, and the drink mix, the hydration mix being lemon lime. So they actually complemented each other.
Hmm.
But yeah, I had no issues with stomach issues or distress, and the flavor was fine. It was light enough, it was palpable, and it worked out.
That's great. Always something tricky to figure out for ultra cyclists. Looking at a couple of photos here as we continue to chat about that. Tell me about this photo here.
So that's at Church Creek. So that's where I set
Okay.
the world records. But that was in 2010. So that was
Wow.
my first time trial ever, period. First time I'd ever been to Church Creek, the first time I'd ever entered any time trial like event. And
Wow.
yeah, I just wrote, I was writing on my blog, on my website about changing things up, how I've always been doing the same races over and over again, and how in
Hmm.
2021 it's the start of something new and I need to do something different.
Hmm.
Um, so I was going through all my photos and I found many photos from Church Creek, which just showed me how many times I've raced that course.
Hmm. And of course, so 2010, you were what, about 16 years old then at the time?
Yes.
Very interesting. Okay, so getting back now to some of the nutritional aspects, the mix that you currently have, do you think you'll be able to take that to 12 hours, 24 hours, or, one of those ultra events that you might want to do, race across Italy, for example?
I'm hopeful. I think that from a traveling perspective, it's not very convenient because there's such a it's a measure it's measured. It's not like a 1-to-1 scoop ratio. Like it's a couple of grams here, a couple of grams there. So it's hard to really make that mix work.
Hmm.
But there's also comes a point in time where my stomach just wants something, just something small. That's, you pop a marshmallow or ice cake and everything turns up and is good. Um, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. I think that the team at Scratch are really innovative. So future products will be worthwhile testing as well. But for right now, if it doesn't, it works, it's sufficient, and so yeah, I'd like to carry it through and see if that'll work for multi hours after 8 hours. But we'll have to test and see. I'll report back.
Yeah, we'll look forward to hearing about that. Of course, many guests, even including myself, quite enjoy Scratch Labs products. Very enjoyable, both in the flavor, but also nutritionally. Very well thought out recipes that they have. What is your favorite flavor? You mentioned lemon lime.
Yeah, lemon lime is just it's an easy base flavor. It's
Mm,
not too challenging, and hot or cold, it's something that I know I'm happy with it.
mm. Now, curious, have you ever found it difficult to maintain your weight, either keep it down or keep it up? And what do you do? I mean, just day to day, are you counting calories? Do you just have a good routine and you're eating very similar foods week to week?
Yeah, so similar foods. That's an easy one. That this is just a side note, but from when I was at school, a lot of mental energy was going into studying and the homework, the tests, preparation, and the training, the cycling and working. So all of those came together. I just thought that it's kind of silly to think about, but
Mm,
having a decision to make, it costs energy. So deciding what I wanted to eat for lunch, what I wanted to have for breakfast, dinner, snacks, whatever it may be. So
definitely.
the most prepare in advance and know I'm going to have this salad for lunch on Monday. I'm going to have fish and a sweet potato for dinner on Tuesday, or whatever it may be. Just that meal
Mm,
planning, it's definitive. Like I know what I'm going to eat and when, and it just takes away that mental aspect of decision making. It's just a fact. I know I'm coming back from my ride. I'm going to be hungry, and so boom, I've got a hard ride tomorrow, so I'm going to have this dinner.
mm.
So I do not count calories. I eat when I'm hungry. I don't when I'm not, and I do indulge. I do treat myself with treats here and there. But the weight it is what it is, and we just let it ride.
Sounds good. Yeah, glad you are able to enjoy life once in a while. Now tell me,
Yes.
how many cannolis can you eat after a 12-hour time trial effort?
That's a question I really wish I knew the answer to.
Yeah,
I haven't found my limit yet.
right.
So in the most perfect world, there's a bakery local that
Hmm.
has all you can eat cannoli
No way.
experience, and
Wow.
so I'm waiting. There's going to be it's gonna happen. There's going to be a perfect day. Maybe it's in 2021 just to compensate for 2020. It's just there's so much excitement around this event. there's going to be an ultra cycling event, and the day after is when they're going to hold their all-you-can-eat cannoli, or maybe in the same day. I don't know, but that'll be the time to go and just eat my weight and then some in cannoli. That would be fantastic.
Wow, amazing. Yeah, I want to see you at the end of that ride. Killed over. So here's some cannolis for those who aren't familiar with these delicacies. Now they do come in different flavors, I guess you could say. What's your favorite kind?
All right, so my all-time favorite cannoli comes from Bova's Bakery in Boston, and their cannoli is called the Florentine. It's like an Italian cookie. It's not just a traditional cannoli shell. So that it's the vessel for the filling is a whole nother level. It's a whole different tasting experience. And again, it's all about the cream to cookie ratio. So they've nailed it. It's speechless. There's not much I can say aside from it's a traditional filling, but the shell completely complements the filling. And if I lived in Boston, I don't know, I would probably live next door and just frequent them every day. So
yeah, sounds good. Yeah, sounds delicious. We'll have to try that and participate in that event so we can get our share of cannolis in. Now, Ryan, you mentioned school earlier. Curious, what did you study? Tell me about what you're doing now.
So I've been at the University of Maryland. Actually, interestingly, so going back to what you said about nutrition, as I started my cycling career, I found it fascinating that the foods that you could eat could determine your performance, not only the next day, but subsequent days down the road. So it led to better recovery, it led to better energy, mental performance, everything. And I learned the lesson the hard way before in sports, where I didn't really understand the value of nutrition or the role of nutrition. And that coupled with performance and the right timing, frequency with exercise can lead to so many different outcomes. So with that all being said, I actually created my own major for undergrad at the University of Maryland. It was nutritional physiology. So it was all about the foods that you eat and the exercise, how you can use them together for a complementary effect. That's what led me to Sebastian to really study the Mediterranean diet and to study and to learn from Michelin chefs. So also going back to what you said earlier in the episode, I love to cook. And I've apprenticed these Michelin chefs and I've tested
and
I've made some excellent food and learned from the best in the world. So anyways, that was undergrad. And I recently graduated in May from the University of Maryland Smith School of Business with my MBA.
Wow, busy man. MBA.
Yes.
Didn't see that one coming with your Olympic background and your ultracycling and nutritional physiology. What was that?
You gotta eat.
Yeah, definitely. So an MBA, a particular focus?
It was a mix of strategy, consulting, and marketing.
Amazing. So what are you doing with that currently, or what are your future plans?
That's a good question. So right now I'm doing consulting work. So guiding a data analytics company, which has been exciting. But in the future, that remains to be determined. We'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, very exciting. So let's talk about balancing life then. So pretty busy. Okay. You're a very competitive cyclist. You have other hobbies. You're also eating a lot of cannolis in between. How do you find the time? Well, say perhaps in the middle of a season, how many hours are you usually riding? And how are you able to find the right balance with work, family, friends, I'm sure, and all of your other hobbies?
So I actually think it's a Seinfeld quote, but don't quote me on that. If something is really important for you, you'll find the time for it. And that has always stuck with me. You've got to have your time for training. You've got to have your time for family and friends and for work and whatever else may come along. So in the middle of the season, probably between 15 to 20 so hours a week on the bike. And that's just exclusively ride time. So of course that adds up to, before the getting prepared for the ride, getting de-ride afterwards. But yeah, like I said, I love waking up early in the morning in the summer. That's something that I can afford to do just because of the time, the daylight that I have available. So I'm no stranger to getting up and being on the bike like at 4 in the morning or so, just riding. It's nice. There's no one on the road. You're just fighting for road space with the deer. But you've had a few close encounters, but it's great. You catch the sunrise, you get your workout in, you feel energized, and then you go to work or you go to school or whatever you have a whole day ahead of you. And you may have to go to bed a little early because you're exhausted, but at least you find time to make the most of the day.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, and it is true, making the time for what's important. Now, you mentioned some animals, but here's another one. Really curious to know the story about this here horse.
Yeah, so that's a pony, and that's in San Sebastian, Spain. So there's one route that leads from San Sebastian into a town called Orio. And this pony, well, I call it a pony cow. It's a pony, but it's got spots on it like a cow. And it's right at that intersection from leaving the town of Orio going into San Sebastian. And that was like a main artery for me on my bike. So I would leave the town, I'd start my rides, I'd see the pony cow, I'd wave, I'd come back from my rides. And if I ever had a snack, like I'd find apples on the road, I would give him an apple. Or sometimes I'd bring treats with me from the house and just feed him, or her. I don't know the gender. But the other thing that was really cool, the road split. So if I wanted to take like the rolling flat way back into town, that was one option. Or there was I think it was called Esquibo. It was a mountain that you could take back into town. And the pony cow lived right at that intersection. So if I wanted to go up the hill, it had the ability to go up the hill with me. So there were times where I would go up the hill and it would race me up the hill.
That's so cool.
But it was awesome. And it wasn't very far. I think it was just a couple hundred meters before the climb just kept going over the mountain and, around into town. But for those few short minutes that you're going uphill, you have a buddy that's, racing alongside of you, whether he was racing me for the finish line or because he wanted the apple that I was going to throw to him at the end. I don't know, but it was still fun.
Yeah, really nice pony. And buddy, like you said. Okay, early, you didn't want to tell us what your max power output is, but perhaps not in watts, but how about in horsepower or pony power? Are you at least at one horsepower?
One pony cow. Yeah.
One pony cow. That's so cool. So Ryan, you're a very fascinating individual, still very young by many measures. Now, not young compared to me. I'm only 30 years old, so only a few years older. But with that perspective in mind, I know that there's so much more ahead for you and up the road. I'm very excited for being able to follow your journey forward. I know you are just at the very beginning of ultracycling even. I've done a lot, and I'm sure that your competitiveness and your ambitions will drive you to great extent. So I look forward to all that competition. But I'm also curious, just at this time, you were very competitive, road racing, crits, even on the track. Now you're an ultracyclist. What do you think most people don't realize about ultracycling? Whether it's a non-cyclist or just a non-ultracyclist, perhaps, some of the friends that you still have that are, roadies.
I think one of the greatest misconceptions is that the ultra endurance events are slow or require low effort. I think that the idea is that you hold them in a comparison where you got the criteriums, where you got those high power sprint outputs. It's fast. It's neck and neck. And then you turn your head to what you see in many ultracycling events where people aren't going as fast. The power output that they may assume associated with it isn't that high, which is true. I mean, still, if you're going to do a crit and you're averaging 30 miles an hour, you're not going to average 30 miles an hour for, you know, a 24-hour race, unless you're Christoph Strasser. And your power output is not, you're not going to have 2000 watt sprints in a 24-hour event. I think that's one of the greatest misconceptions. And then people think that, you know, endurance events, you just get on the bike and you slowly start pedaling, and it's just who can outlast someone else. There's actually a lot of strategy that goes behind it. There's a lot of power behind it. And, you know, I think if people have any doubts about what an ultra endurance events are or what they're like, they really just need to throw their hat in the ring and give it a shot.
Yes, well said. I hope many will accept that challenge. I'd imagine you have a lot of friends that are those crit type racers, road racers. So perhaps many that you hope would join you in the ranks of ultracycling someday?
You know, I would love that. As you said earlier, just a lot of my training is done by myself. A lot of people do not want to spend hours on a bike or sitting on a bike, and they're focused more on those short crits and road races. But I would love to go on longer rides with a lot of my buds around here. That'd be great. So yeah, I am hopeful that one day we'd be able to go on a ultra event together.
Yeah, most definitely, that'd be fun. Now, one of the things that I've noticed in different races that I've done out here in California is, you may be aware that there's a large double century series that happens every year, 20 to 30 of these races. So just about the, say for you, a 9 to 12 hour type of range. So a perfect race for you. And would love to have you out here. It'd be a lot of fun to race with you in those events.
Yeah, that sounds
But
awesome.
one of the things that I've found with some of the racers that participate, some of them coming from a road racing background, they tend to struggle as new ultra cyclists with the adjustment in pace required, of course. And you know, it's very easy to go, say, 50 miles and feel fresh and be going hard. And, you know, of course, inevitably you get to the lunch stop, say around 100, 110 miles, and, you know, you're on the ground and there's no way you're going to be able to make it. And perhaps you may even DNF. So I'm just wondering for you, was it difficult to make that adjustment in pace when you were doing your first ultra events?
Not really. No, I am not one to stop on my rides. I don't drink coffee, so I don't particularly enjoy coffee stops or cafe stops. I usually carry all the food that I need with me on the bike, you know, carry always a little extra just in case. So I usually just don't stop. I've learned when I was living in Spain that there really is no reason to stop. You can do everything you need to on the bike and just keep going. So I never had that issue of hitting the wall just at 100 miles and stopping.
Very cool. So again, like you were saying, holistic rider, you definitely have a lot of things calibrated and figured out to make yourself successful. Of course, you were in the running for the Olympics, so that just speaks volumes about the level of discipline, the approach that you take, you know, how methodical you must be, especially as an MBA. I could just imagine how analytical you get when it comes to even training and, of course, your nutrition. So tell me one takeaway that we could share with folks when it comes to nutrition. What is one thing you think, you know, kind of that 80-20 rule, if we all applied it, it would get us 80% of the way there, and or 80% improved from where you think most ultra cyclists make mistakes nutritionally?
So from my first, I'm not an expert. I'm not a dietitian, right? But just from my experience looking at what I did in Bike Sebring, the first event, or even the first national championship, the first 12-hour event that I entered, that compared to when I won, there was a huge change in just the amount of food that I ate. Just that was completely underestimated for my standards. That coming as a road racer and as my background, I just never ate that much. I never anticipated the demands that I would need to eat that much. And I learned the hard way that what happens when you don't have the fuel. So just from that perspective, if you think you're eating enough, you probably need to eat a little bit more.
Yeah, very true. Actually, that is a good adjustment that you do have to make. Sometimes when you're doing a shorter just training ride, you know, people may neglect to even eat at all, because if you're on your ride in 1, 2, maybe even 3 hours, you know, you're going to come back, you stop cycling, you start burning off all that fuel, and then, you're having a nice lunch meal or something like that. But of course, once you are riding for many hours on end, especially if you're at high intensities and you're just burning up all the calories, you may even find yourself in a deficit on a multi-day event. So you really have to stay disciplined with that.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so very true. Okay, as we kind of draw to the end here, Ryan, just wondering a couple more things. First one is, what tips do you have for people wanting to get started with ultra cycling as a relatively newcomer to the ultra cycling world yourself?
That's a good question. The first tip, ride your bike.
That's a great one.
If you ride your bike, and you want to enter your first event, just, there should be no question about it. Just do it. Jump in and do it. Try it. And there's no better way to learn than by putting practice in, by doing it, right? By jumping into the fire. Not only will you learn about yourself, but the community from ultracycling is something special. They're going to help you and support you, and there's just an infinite wealth of wisdom and knowledge, and the camaraderie is great. From your closest competitors, you're battling to the finish line, but they're smiling and they're cheering for you at the same time, right? So enter your first event, try it, learn from it, and ride your bike. That's really all I can say.
Yeah, that's some great tips though, actually. I will say I agree. Just riding your bike a little bit more than you're used to will definitely help you become an ultra cyclist. And you can't neglect that. Just shared training helps a lot.
You learn from yourself, right? The more you train, the more you learn about your body, from pacing, even your mental capability. So what does it feel like to ride 100 miles in 5 hours or 4 hours, or doing another 100 miles is not going to feel like the first 100 miles you did before. So how your body reacts at those times. Hold the position on your bike. What starts to hurt? What gear helps you to feel more comfortable on the bike? All of that comes into practice, but it's all theoretical until you actually do it.
Yeah, very true. And in the vein of that, experimentation is essentially what you're saying. And I like that you said, just jump in, just get started, because that is the best way to see for yourself how you feel, how you react, what you have to do. But it really is very much, ultracycling is this experimentation that we're all doing, different distances, different fuels, what works for, you at one distance or time duration versus another one. And I think a lot of what you shared is being very valuable, because you shared exactly that, how you started. Even a very experienced and very, very competitive, high-performing athlete turning into ultracycling, even you have made your share of mistakes or have had your lessons to learn. But of course, now, 3 years later, 4 records, 3 world records, and a cross-state record later, I'm sure that you've laid a solid foundation for your ultracycling career. Look forward to having you at some of the multi-day events, which I guess will be a very fun one to watch with someone so fast and competitive like you. So Ryan, few sprint round questions to the finish line here.
All right.
First fun question, of course, is how would you rate yourself in terms of bicycle maintenance on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being exceptional, when it comes to lubing your chain, changing out your tires, cleaning your beauties that you have there?
Yeah, I'd say I'd probably put around a 7.
Wow, that's pretty high.
I mean, the bikes are all pretty much intuitive now, right? So there's the lubing the chain is easy. It's one of the fortunate things I have is wax, so it comes right on, right off. The tires are a whole nother story. The tubeless tires can be sometimes a pain, but Envy has actually come along with a lot of technology for popping those tires on. They go on pretty easy now. So what's left? All I have to do is charge the battery and I'm good to go.
Pretty cool, man. You make it sound so easy, but yet most of the guests on the show have probably been averaging below 5, to be kind about it.
Improvement, right?
Yeah, so we might need a separate video with you, and you could teach us all how to maintain our bikes better.
I'd be happy to.
Maybe they'll help us go a little faster if we're nicer to them. Talking about bikes, Ryan, do you have a dream bicycle or do you already own it?
Ooh. Yeah, I'd have to say I really, really like the lines of the new Specialized Shiv for the time trial bike. I just like the way the bike looks. But looks are one thing, and if anything, what ultracycling has taught me, sometimes what looks fast isn't necessarily fast. I love my BMC. It rides so well. For 12-hour events, it's comfortable. I know what to expect from it, how it's going to react when I pedal, when I accelerate, when I turn. Everything has just been fantastic. So from that perspective, I'd say that I have my dream bike, and I'm happy with what I've got right now.
Yeah, well, it's definitely a beauty, and it's taking you long distances and very fast. So I think probably for some of us, your bike is our dream one. Now, Ryan, who would you want to nominate for an episode on this show? A story that has inspired you, or someone that you think is just inspiring?
So I think what's really interesting, we've talked for a while about ultracycling, and the first name that I brought up was Christoph Strasser. It's something that or many people think of as one of the greatest or the greatest ultracyclists of all time. Marco Ballo's up there as well. But I think the path that they've taken to reach the top has been different. There hasn't been a set way of reaching to the top. And now the other name that's out there is Andy Jackson. And his approach to ultracycling is also very different. And from someone who's the only person to hold the world record for 24 hours, 12 hours, and 6 hours at Borrego Springs for the World Time Trial Championships, that's also a different perspective. And I think it'd be great to get his insights and his perspective about how he reached the top, what his thoughts are for going forward, and his background as well.
Yes, a name that has come up both in this interview and in others. So you're very right that there is something to learn there, that he is very talented, both at the shorter end of the spectrum and at the longer end. So there must be a lot to learn. Of course, you're under his care and learning a lot. And of course, it's allowing you to do quite a fair share yourself. So looking forward to having you back on the show in the future for your future accomplishments.
Absolutely.
And races. Really looking forward to that neck-to-neck race with Marco Ballo, Christoph Strasser, and many others that we've had on the show. That'll be a really fun one. We'll be sure to live stream that event. And if you could have a choice, which country would you want that race to take place?
Oh, hands down, it would have to be Italy. I mean, of course, not because the awesome scenery, but the food there is fantastic for after the event. But yeah, I love riding in Italy, so that'd be the place I'd like to be.
Yeah, sounds good. And I guess that would make it very accessible for all those fast European racers, including Marco and Christoph. So
there you go.
Ryan, thanks for taking the time to share some of your story. Really inspirational and very exciting, all that you've already done and what is up and coming for you. We look forward to following your journey, and we wish you all the best for the records that you'll be setting, the races that you'll be participating in, and also looking forward to staying up to date with your blog. Seems like you're writing quite a lot there, and as an MBA, as a nutritional physiologist, it seems like there's a lot to learn from you. You've accomplished a lot, and you're just 26 years of age. So keep going. Wish you all the best. But thanks again for joining us on the show today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Justin. It's been a pleasure to be part of the show, and I look forward to staying in touch.
Most definitely. And for everybody watching at home, we hope you enjoyed the program today with Ryan Collins. Follow his advice if you're on the fence about ultracycling or a particular event that you're planning for 2021. Just do it, jump in, as he said. And we look forward to welcoming you into the ultracycling family. And for me personally, I look forward to seeing you racing neck to neck with Ryan himself. Until next episode, everyone, keep spinning ultra.